After weeks of speculation, it looks as though Colton Herta is not going to be a candidate to drive for AlphaTauri in 2023 due to a lack of points on his super license and failing to get an exemption from the FIA. However, an AlphaTauri boss has said that they are going to be working with Colton to try and help him get his super license sooner rather than later. And we get Alexander Rossi also commenting on the license point system. We also have more news on Nyck De Vries, who looks as though he may be joining an unexpected team. And Daniel Ricciardo drops a hint at what he will be doing for 2023. Let's get right into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Formula One Digest. I'm your host, Tyson De Silva, and I'm reacting to some interesting news about IndyCar star Colton Herta, who, if you haven't been following our latest videos, we have been covering whether or not Colton Herta, who is a IndyCar star, American driver, whether or not he will be driving in Formula One for 2023 for AlphaTauri. He's been linked to AlphaTauri since, I think, late or mid-August. And it's really interesting, the situation that's going on, because it looks as though, for those of you who may not know, he was trying to get an exemption to join F1 next year, as he only has 32 of the 40 points required for his super license. But it looks as though that exemption has been denied, and he will not be driving in an AlphaTauri car for 2023. And what does this do for AlphaTauri? Well, it does a lot of things. They don't get the guy they wanted. They are not quite sure what to do with Pierre Gasly, I think, at this point, because the standing deal was that if AlphaTauri got Colton Herta, they would release Gasly of his contract, or they would let Gasly be bought from his contract to go join Alpine for next season, because Alpine has really wanted Pierre. So right now, there's still news that needs to be broken out about whether or not Pierre is still going to go to Alpine, but it looks as though that the Red Bull Academy and AlphaTauri will not be getting their guy for next year. What does this do also for Colton? Well, it just means that he's going to need to do more tests or FP1 sessions, potentially some other races to get the remaining 8 points to get his super license. Which is unfortunate because he is a very talented driver, and he has won 7 IndyCar races over the last 4 seasons and has finished in the top 10 in points in each of his 4 full-time seasons. And it is sad because he's just really an interesting case for a driver, but it looks as though we may have to wait another year before we see him in an F1 car. Hopefully still with Red Bull for my case, because Red Bull fan. Haha. But some interesting news that's also come out of this is that the AlphaTauri boss, Franz Tost, who is the team principal for AlphaTauri, has promised to give Colton Herta some FP1 runs if it will help him with his super license. For those of you who may not know, this was recently just explained to me by my co-host Mark, that the way that the super license points work out is that for one FP1 session where you hit 100 kilometers or higher, you get 1 point per session. Now you may be saying there aren't enough races, there isn't enough time in the F1 calendar for him to do 8 FP sessions, free practice sessions to get the points. Well, that's not the only case that he can do. He has a couple of alternatives. Another alternative is that he could do some tests for other Formula One teams just to continue to get the points. And then eventually he will have the 40 he needs to get his super license. So we could potentially maybe see him complete the sessions in the off season. Once the season is over and he can do some more tests, maybe rack up more points. But I think personally that we are probably not going to be seeing him in a F1 car until 2024. And I'm not the only one, and I'm sure a lot of you are also not the only ones that feel a little disappointed that this potential American F1 star is not coming to the sport. Alexander Rossi, who is also a IndyCar driver, has released a statement on what he thinks of the license points and how it has affected the sport. And I will read the entire quote for you. I'll even include it here right now. And he basically says, "I've kept my mouth shut long enough, so here it goes. I'm so sick and tired of this back and forth regarding super license points. The whole premise was that it would keep people from buying their way into F1 and allowing talent to be the motivating factor. That's great. We all agree Colton has the talent and the capability to be an F1. That it's also great, and he should get that opportunity if it's offered to him, period." He continues on by talking about how the whole idea behind the license points was that it was to eliminate the problem of people using the business side of F1 to get their way into the sport. But it looks as though he's also saying that these decisions have cost Colton an opportunity to make the decision for himself to make a career path and race in F1. And it's the points on the license that have dictated that. So I personally agree, and I also spoke to Mark about this, and he also agrees that the licensing in this case can be a bit ridiculous because there have been drivers in the past that have made their way into F1 simply just by their financial backings. A recent example of this would be Nikita Mazepin, who was in solely just because he would give financial backing to Haas, who needed the money at the time. So overall, it is really shocking news that Colton will not be given the opportunity to race in F1. It's really sad if it doesn't play out this way, but I think it does call to reason that maybe people should, or maybe there needs to be a reevaluation of how the points and the licensing works, because now it's preventing potential F1 stars to enter the league or enter the sport. So we will continue to follow the Colton Herta news as it unfolds, but right now it looks as though he will not be joining AlphaTauri for next year, and this leaves a lot of questions as to what will happen with Pierre Gasly. So we will continue to follow that. But in some other news, it looks as though Nyck De Vries, now that this Colton Herta news is off the table, it looks as though Nyck De Vries is potentially going to be going to AlphaTauri. This is not confirmed news. It is really hard to say whether or not how real this news is. It seems to be a rumor as of right now. But it looks as though Nyck De Vries is going to be replacing Pierre Gasly at AlphaTauri with Colton Herta off the table. And this is a really interesting idea that could happen, because for those of you who don't know, Nyck De Vries is a Mercedes driver. His agent or his manager is Toto Wolff, and it's really interesting if we get Nyck De Vries, who is a Mercedes driver through and through, in a Red Bull seat, because obviously there's an opportunity there, but does Toto Wolff really want one of his more talented prospects or drivers in a Red Bull seat? So it could be a similar situation to Alex Albon and how he was a Red Bull driver, but now he's driving for a Mercedes team. We're going to need to continue to follow how that goes. We're not quite sure how this will unfold for Nyck De Vries. I think me and Mark both are in agreement that he's still probably most likely going to go to Williams and replace Nicholas Latifi. We were actually hoping that there'd be an announcement that Nicholas Latifi would be let go of for the rest of the season and give Nyck De Vries his seat for the rest of the season, because right now Alex Albon and Nyck De Vries are the only drivers that have been able to get points in a Williams car as of late. And I guess the question also is, who do you replace Nicholas Latifi with next year if you don't get Nyck De Vries and you decide you don't want to go further with Nicholas Latifi? So we're going to need to continue to follow how this Nyck De Vries free agency kind of goes. But for now, it looks as though, in my opinion, he's going to go still to Williams. But if he goes to AlphaTauri, you guys will be the first ones to know from us. A name that's also been floating around for the Williams seat has been Daniel Ricciardo, but it looks as though Daniel Ricciardo will be out for the 2023 season, and will potentially be a Mercedes reserve driver after losing his seat in McLaren. It looks as though he's accepted that he will not be in an F1 racing seat next season. And he has openly said that he does not want to get on the grid and join a team just for the sake of it. He does want to be in a competitive car, and he still wants to win. So I guess that rules out teams like Haas and Williams. Those are two teams that we discussed that could sign Daniel Ricciardo. And honestly, I think this attitude is really good because he's basically saying, I don't want to waste the rest of my F1 career on a backmarker team that has no chance of winning. And I think that it's going to be really interesting to see what Daniel does in the time that he's not in F1, which could be a year. It could be maybe the rest of his career, as Lewis doesn't look like he wants to slow down. I believe he openly said the other day that he still wants to race for a few more years. At 37 too, it's not hard to see him maybe being a Fernando Alonso of the F1 grid going into his 40s racing. But we're going to have to continue to follow what happens with Lewis and what will happen with Daniel Ricciardo as the season continues. Because he has said that I don't want to jump into a car for the sake of it. I've accepted that I'm not going to be on the grid next year, and I'm okay with that. It's really unfortunate to see how Daniel Ricciardo's career has kind of gone, but hopefully we will see him very soon back and better than ever, because he is quite a talent and he is quite the personality to have in the sport. If you guys made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We appreciate all your support. And we will see you guys in the next video. We don't really have a race this weekend or next weekend. We have Singapore in a couple weeks. So until then, guys, we will continue to follow all the latest news.